Okay, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. السلام عليكم لجميع الحاضرين وشكرا على تواجدكم معنا. My name is Marwa Ghumrawi, your moderator, and this webinar is hosted by the Washington Center for Yemeni Studies. In today's webinar discussion and book launch of Prison Time in Sana'a by Dr. Abdulkader Al-Guneid, we get an insight into Al-Guneid's experience and further discuss Yemeni prisoners' current situation and human rights violations in Yemen. I would like to welcome our speakers, Dr. Abdulkader Al-Guneid, the author, and His Excellency Ahmed Arman, Minister of Legal Affairs and Human Rights in Yemen. Thank you for taking the time and being here with us today. Just a few reminders before we get started. Today's session will be entirely in English. However, we will email all participants a report summarizing this webinar in Arabic and English. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat or in the comment section on Facebook, and we will have them answered during our Q&A session. للحضور المتحدث باللغة العربية، ندوة اليوم ستناقش كتاب الدكتور عبد القادر الجنيد عن قصته في سجون صنعاء ووضع السجناء في اليمن، وستكون باللغة الإنجليزية، ولكن سنصدر تقرير باللغتين يلخص الندوة. لشراء الكتاب سيوضع الرابط في الشات. لمن لديه أسئلة للمتحدثين الرجاء إرسالها عبر الشات أو كتعليق على الفيسبوك. Just a reminder for everyone, the link for the book on Amazon will be in the chat for you guys to check out. We'll go ahead and get started. Prison Time in Sana'a tells the story of Dr. Abdulkader Al-Guneid's harrowing experience inside a jail in Yemen's capital shortly after it was taken over by Houthi rebels. Al-Guneid shared his time with American hostages, Houthi fighters, Al-Qaeda militants, and ordinary Yemenis caught up in the chaos of war. Today, I will leave it to Dr. Al-Guneid to tell us more about his book and his personal experience. However, I would like to give you a snippet of my experience reading the book. Having never been to Yemen, Dr. Al-Guneid's storytelling transported me to a place I did not know, yet it felt very familiar. I became fond of Yemen's beauty painted by each story, its different landscapes, cities, mountains, and villages, and the beautiful people within its borders from diverse walks of life, different dialects and cultural nuances with a shared love for their land. It was disheartening that all of this charm was told through a deeply personal account of incarceration and injustice in cold and dark jail cells. However, it offered an extraordinarily candid perspective on the Yemen crisis from deep within Houthi-held territory. Dr. Abdulkader Al-Guneid, he is a doctor and human rights activist from Taiz, Yemen, a non-partisan, non-sectarian, non-tribal, and non-regionalist Yemeni who saw his country under danger and tried humbly to share in the efforts to spare Yemen the tragedies. He has been featured on international news outlets such as BBC, Al Arabiya, Huffington Post, Al Jazeera, The Independent, and the Financial Times, and is a prominent voice on Twitter. You can also follow him at Al-Guneid. And now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to you, Doctor. Please tell us more about your experience in Sana'a's prisons and why you decided to write this book, and at what moment was that?
Thank you very much. Do you hear me now? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Marwa, for a very nice introduction. And thank you, people of Washington Center for Yemeni Studies. And thanks, my colleague, His Excellency Ahmed Amran, Minister. Okay, I have 20 minutes, so I would like to use it in a most useful and fruitful way. Of course, it is a very bad experience. Just imagine you are in your own home and you have worked since early morning, and at 2 a.m., some people storm into your house, armed, and attack, intrude into your sanctuary. I mean, a house is a sanctuary. I mean, to be with your wife, and some armed people come into that house and grab you and scare your wife, and they loot precious things. Even we had a housekeeper, and she had some money from her salary. They stole that. They stole even her money, not only the other precious things that they did. So yes, it is a crime. It is a crime on a personal level. It's crime against humanity. It's crime on every level you can expect. It is a crime. They are rude. They are vulgar. They are everything you can imagine. During the day, my house is on a hill, one of the highest hill. I am overlooking the presidential palace. And I saw from that presidential palace the guns of the Republican guards shelling neighborhoods. I saw that with my own eyes. I mean, you can go to picture. I took picture for that. And I was telling all that to the world in English and in Arabic. They violated our capital. They stormed into the capital and invaded it and made a coup. So they violated my country. They violated my city. They violated my house. They stole my belongings. So how worse, how low can you get below that? So, I mean, we don't have to expand more about how bad they are. Then I was 66 years old at that time. So just imagine, they twist your arms, they handcuff your hands, they blindfold you, and they drag you in the streets. Well, I mean, in their car with 5 people with those slogan of death to America, death to Israel, and all this Tehran shout or Tehran scream. It is even not theirs. It is borrowed. It is Khomeini's scream. It is not theirs. And then at that time, while I'm in their car, I figured out what is waiting for me. And at that time, I made my plan, what I should do. I knew their most important, I mean, of course, they took me because I was telling the world what they were doing to my country and to my city and to people like me. I was just the last one who was caught before I stopped writing, telling the world. Otherwise, their stories everywhere. I mean, they were my city was besieged. They were urinating on the water tanks entering into the city. They were preventing vegetables from getting into the city. You can't go below Houthi behaviors. They are the worst thing you can imagine or you can have as an enemy. They are the worst. In those moments in the car that they took me to their interrogation center by the airport, I knew exactly, I mean, what they want from me. I figured they wanted me to make an example of me to whoever wants to protest. They don't like protests or opposition. And of course, they wanted to shut me up because I was telling the world about their bad things. And I knew in my heart that what they want more than any other thing is to break my will and my pride and my zest, my resilience. So I figured out what I should do at that moment. And I just went through it for the next 300 days. They took me to that center by the airport. of interrogation. I was against a wall, roughly from 7 o'clock to 12 o'clock, 5 whole hours, facing the wall. My handcuffs to my back and blindfolded. Just imagine 5 hours for someone who is 66 facing the wall. And I usually I wake up before dawn. I didn't so I also always I was doing a 24 hours ordeal. And it is the details of the interrogation is in the book. Then I was taken to Sana'a, another fancy interrogation, and you have to sign about the interrogation contents while you are blindfolded. Can you imagine that? I mean, unheard of. I mean, how come? I signed while smiling. And then they took me to the National Security Jail in Sarif, in the crossroads to Khawlan and to Beni Hashesh. 300 days in very tight, dim cell. Tight, dim cell, no fresh air, no light, no blue sky, no air. And there is very bad corners there, curtained by a concrete wall up to your knee. And there is a latrine. And you respond to the calls of nature. And wash up, population, wudu, everything is there. And then come back to that tight cell with your inmates. I mean, I had a very beautiful house. It was the fruit of a whole life. I had a swimming pool. I have a very good garden. I used to sunbathe, to swim, to have fresh air under the sky. And then you don't have even, I mean, it was a dream to see blue sky. It was a dream. The food was lousy, very lousy, and not enough. We became very thin soon. I mean, became skin and bones. And the jailers, they love to make you feel bad. They love it. So I decided 3 things, and those 3 things I made the decision when I was in their car, when they took me from my house. First thing, I want nothing, because you become weak when you start to want things. Not to want anything is strength, is power, and they love to deny you any wish. They love it. The other thing, I exercised a lot.
Sorry, Dr. Abdulkader, you're muted.
Dr. Abdulkader, if you would just unmute. Hold on. Okay, there you go.
Now it's okay.
Yes.
So the first thing is stoicism. I want nothing. If you don't want anything, that's power. Even in life, even outside of jail. If you think you have everything, think even if you don't have, that's power. Number 2 is exercise. I exercised a lot. By the end of the day, I was so tired, so exhausted to be sad or to be depressed. And of course, there is a substance called endorphin, which makes you pleased about yourself. And it comes with exercise. The other thing was telling myself stories. So I told myself all the stories that you can imagine, which made me busy and amused. So I didn't care less about the conditions. But don't misunderstand me. It is horrible. It was just, I had a technique to overcome that ordeal. I mean, I saw people losing their mind. I saw people imagining things, hallucinating. I saw people screaming with all their voice. I saw people bang their heads. I saw people think that their fathers are being tortured in the other room. They are hearing voices. This is called hallucination. I saw people commit suicide. I saw big men covering their head and crying. The one of the worst thing in that ordeal as well is the uncertainty. They love to make you uncertain about what's going to happen to you. So I had these thoughts that I may never be outside, and that I might be even killed without anyone know about me. The other thing, which is classical for forcibly disappeared. The forcibly disappeared means literally your family knows nothing about you. Even if you are, whether you were alive or dead, they don't know. They didn't know. They don't tell them anything. They even sometimes deny that I was with them. They deny that they did that. And the other thing, you don't know what happened to them. You don't know. And this is really, it hurts. It hurts both. The family. For every one in jail, you think only about the people in prison. Please think about their families. Actually, sometimes I feel emotional and sad for what my family more than for myself, which is really bad. So Houthis don't, I mean, it is very bad, very bad, very bad. The book, I was moved into 15 cells. With each cells new different people, and they come from different regions. And with their regions, they have different stories as persons, as in politics and in social things, and their regions geopolitically is placed in a certain place in the whole geopolitics of Yemen. So I told their stories as well, not only my story. And by telling their stories, I told the story of Yemen in an easy, simple way, charming way, and the problems of Yemen. So I think you can attract foreigners as being our community. You are our people. You are my folks, our folks. Our folks in the United States and in the diaspora, Yemen need you. Yemen want you. These people, the decision maker of the United States, they don't care less about humanity and human rights, but what they do care most about is their constituents. You are a power if you know how to use it. I wrote the book in English, hopefully that it can help people like you to do something about you, about helping your own country and your own folks. When I wrote it in English, also I tried to make it even humorous. It shouldn't be grim. I shouldn't punish the reader. The reader should read it, and when he finishes it, he's a little bit entertained. He knows more, and he likes it. And he likes it. So I'm giving it to you to use it. it is not a conflict of interest. I'm not promoting it because it is my book. I don't want anything. I'll see what the returns and what I will do with it, right? What I want it is to be used in the purpose that I intended it to be when I wrote it. Every chapter was written, I think if you wanted to know, I wrote it all in my mind while I was in the cells. And I meant it in my cells. When I went out, I just evacuated what is already in my brain, the same words. I wanted also to tell about humans. I mean, the story of this book is not only about Yemen. It is about humans, which can happen anywhere, in Venezuela, in China, in Russia, in any country of people under stress. What happens to people under stress? And also about the jailers who love to put these people under stress. So you will know about humans, about the tormented, and about the tormentors. So how long I still have?
We still have about 10 minutes.
Oh, so I did it fast. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what do you want me to expand on?
I just, so you were saying that you kind of kept an account in your mind of the stories and everything you were going through. I remember at the beginning, you had mentioned that when you were in the car, when you were first taken, you decided to just, be detached from your emotions so that you are present for every moment. So you know exactly what's happening in every moment. Was that when you knew that you were going to write this book, or was that later on once you arrived in the South?
Later on. I thought that the world should know about this.
Yeah.
And I thought that people should know about Yemen. Everyone is mixed up about Yemen. Mm-hmm. We have those analysts. They tell you impressive facts and names and dates about things that happened in Yemen. And they line them up one after the other, and then they conclude something, and they claim it is the truth and what should be done. I have suffered this again and again. Yes, every paragraph or every sentence is correct. But when you put them together, it is not the truth. It is not the truth. I mean, the way they lined it up, it is not the truth. I wanted also in this book that people know what's the truth about Yemen.
And for you, what are some of the challenges and successes that came with writing this book? I can't imagine what it's like to put this out to the world, especially in the current climate.
I wrote it in my iPhone, in this particular one. Just imagine, I wrote it in 600,000 words in this one. Wow. It would be 600 pages. But the publisher said they can never take such a size. They can never. It's expensive for them. It will be. So they cut it down to 300,000 words, which is also 300 pages. And sometimes I wrote it. It is so tiring to your fingers, tiring to your shoulders, to your back, to your everything. So sometimes I wrote it while I'm lying flat and my legs to the wall because I was so tired in my back that I will do like this. Yes, it was physically very tiring. And okay, because you are a good talker, after I finish a chapter, I will go to my wife and tell her, "Oh, it is worse than you when you give birth to one of our children." I mean, writing a chapter, and they will scream, "No, giving birth. There is nothing is worse than giving birth, and they will ridicule me. But yes, I mean, I'm telling you this, it was so tiring. I mean, the amount of focusing, the amount of writing it down, the amount of trying to improve on it. And I would work for a whole 6-7 hours solid in one go. That's it's part of my nature. When I do something, I just keep doing. I don't take rest. If I take rest, I will lose interest.
And it must have been difficult to also kind of go through those experiences again as you were writing the book.
Okay.
Would you say so?
I think I'm resilient.
Yeah.
I think I wanted just to do my job. I wanted to okay, I don't want to use the word to hit back, but yes, I wanted to hit back about what they did. Not revenge, but they should really know that they are bad. They should know. And the world should know. So let us put it, I was in a mission. I was doing a job. No, I wouldn't care about the suffering and misery.
I know that you care a lot about all of the stories that you had told in your book. Was there one or specific one that, you know, truly resonated with you or changed something within you or deeply affected you while you were in prison, and you still kind of carry it with you?
I like to contemplate about people and about humans. So at one time I was with a teenager who was Qaeda, and he was, you can say, radical. And then I moved to a Baptist American who is radical Christian. I mean, so that one is a radical Sunni Muslim, and that one is a radical Christian American. You wouldn't believe it. So I like to contemplate and to see things, and to have insight to things, and to have vision about things. So that's what attracts me more. Misery is, everyone is in a misery. The whole thing is a misery. There is there's people who are ill, and I examine them, and they wouldn't give them medicine. Lots of these things, really. I mean, okay, I will move between the two pictures. Examining a patient, and then I know he needs that medicine, and they don't give him that medicine, it made me really sad, furious. It happened many times, right? But what really will keep me contemplating is how humans are really the same. I thought that radical boy and that radical Christian Baptist American, deep and hard, they are the same. I mean, the stories, the ironic thing, they moved me from that one to that one immediately, one after the other. I moved to the American cell because by that time his companion, John Heyman, was killed in the jail or died, and he was on hunger strike, and possibly they thought that because I might know how to talk in English, I might take him out of his problems. As I entered to his cell, it was whatever they do, these jailers, they do it after 2 a.m. in the morning. So they wake me up and say, go, move to the other cell. I have to take my mattress on my back and my pillow, lousy mattress, and my blanket, and go to there, and I enter to his cell. He was in the dark. Everything is in the dark at that time. He didn't see what was intruded in him, and they didn't know what was there. But I knew that I was moved to him because I knew he was in the cell next to me. He was in cell number 5. I was moved from 4. So he was facing east, and he said, later he explained to me, I mean, I'm cutting it short. He was praying to Jesus Christ to send him a light, that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. And when I came in, he thought that he had a response. And whatever I did for the first 2 months, I stayed with him for 3 months, exactly 3 months, 90 days. And whatever I did, he would listen to. And this other thing, I used to calculate every day in my mind. Some people would line them in the wall, some people will do different tricks, and they make mistakes. I did it in my mind, and even for the first 2 weeks, I give them names. But I remembered it correctly every day, every single day, until the 21st of May, 2016. I was abducted on August the 5th, 2015.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdulkader, for this account. And I would like to urge everybody who's here with us today to go purchase the book and read it. It's a true experience within itself, reading this book. Dr. is a great storyteller. And like he said, you do enjoy the reading. You see the comedy in some things. I think one of the most things that I loved about reading the book was not only seeing how resistant you were and how you approached the situation from the beginning, but also even the way you were able to kind of tell us a little bit more about where everybody was from the different things they did, to their dialect, to the way they dressed. It's a beautiful book. Please go ahead in the chat. You'll find the link to the book on Amazon. للمتحدثين باللغة العربية الرابط للكتاب على أمازون موجود في الشات. وللي عنده أسئلة لو سمحتم أرسلوها في الشات and we will رح نجاوبها ب Q&A session. So for those of you who are with us, you will find the link to the book in the chat. And if you have any questions, please send them in the chat or in the Facebook comments, and we will answer them during our Q&A session. And before now with that, I would like to go ahead and turn it over to His Excellency Ahmed Arman. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. There we go. And His Excellency Ahmed Arman is the Minister of Legal Affairs and Human Rights in Yemen since December 2020. Mr. Arman is a lawyer by profession, and prior to his appointment, he served as the Executive Director of the National Commission to investigate alleged violations to human rights in Yemen. He's also served as a national consultant to the UNDP and the International Organization for Immigration. Your Excellency, thank you for joining us today. We heard from Dr. Al-Guneid about his account of imprisonment in Houthi-held territory, and we would like to hear more from you about the prisons in government territories. How are they currently being regulated, and how are the conditions for prisoners are being managed and their human rights granted?
Hello, everybody, and I would like to thank Dr. Abdulkader for his documentation, for his story. He was very courageous and brave to talk about his experience with Houthi prisons, because we have a lot of Yemeni who disappeared and tortured, and they are still in the prison with Houthis until this moment. That they and some of people who released, they refused to talk about their experience. I would like to talk about here in this moment to talk about some statistics about how many Yemenis who subjected to tortures directly, and there for the people who kidnapped by Houthis, there are from 2015 until June 2021, there are more than 22,000 Yemeni detainees who was or kidnapped by Houthis until now. The victims of tortures who being dead until now, there are the number is around 167 until now that they documented. What Dr. Abdulkader said or talk about, it's just it's an example or sample for what happened in the Houthi prisons for sometimes in Yemen. It is a tragedy for the war in Yemen, and what the practices, it's different now. We have a lot of Yemeni people or detainees or kidnapped or disabled for more than 1,000 that the families and the organization and anyone, no one knows about, no one knows anything about them. If you want, you can switch to Arabic. It's better than to talk now, to take about the statistics. It's okay?
Go ahead.
Okay. Just give me الضحايا حتى الآن بالنسبة لانتهاكات حقوق الإنسان حتى منتصف هذا العام 2021 حتى يونيو ما تم توثيقه من جميع الجهات. بالنسبة للقتلى تجاوز 27,000 قتيل حتى هذه اللحظة قامت بها ميليشيات الحوثيين، من بينها حوالي 1000 ما لا يقل عن 1000 من ضحايا التعذيب أو التعذيب المباشر. إذا أردتم أن نوضح حجم الكارثة التي ارتكبها الحوثيين بحق اليمنيين، حقيقة هناك الكثير من الانتهاكات، وآخرها ربما حالات الإعدام أو القصف الذي يستهدف مأرب. حتى الآن سقط في مأرب خلال الفترة من 2015 إلى يونيو 2021 ما يقرب من 1407 قتيل في صفوف المدنيين. نتكلم هنا عن صفوف المدنيين فقط، سواء جراء قصف صاروخي او كاتوشا او مدفعي بشكل مختلف. اما عن الضحايا طبعا هناك حوالي ما يقرب من الاطفال ما تم توثيقه حتى الان من الاطفال ما يقرب من 1535 طفل، وحوالي 666 امراه سقطوا خلال هذه الفترة، وتوزعت كافة هذه الجرائم على مختلف المحافظات، بينما تجاوز عدد الجرحى حتى الآن ما يقرب من 37,563 جريح، منهم أكثر من 5,000 طفل وحوالي 2,000 امرأة سقطوا خلال فترة الحرب في مختلف المناطق التي دارت فيها الحرب، وهؤلاء كضحايا مباشرين لاستهداف جماعات الحوثيين. هناك حقيقة ما يتم إحصاءه حتى الآن لا يمثل حقيقة ما جرى، وكما أشار الدكتور عبدالقادر في معرض حديثه بالنسبة لتجربته مع حالات الاعتقالات والتعذيب والاختطافات ومداهمات المنازل. هناك ما نعجز حتى الآن وتعجز حتى كل المنظمات عن الوصول إليه. ما تمارسه ميليشيات الحوثيين حتى الآن، يعني لو ذكرنا فقط بعض الحوادث، مثلا ما حصل في قصف سجن النساء، أو ما حصل في تعز العام الماضي، أو ما حصل كثير عشرات الحالات. أيضا إذا تكلمنا عن زراعة الألغام حتى الآن بالنسبة لجماعة الحوثيين لدينا إحصائيات مهولة تتكلم الآن عن حوالي ما يقرب من 1800 شخص تعرضوا لعاهات مستديمة، وحوالي 800 شخص هؤلاء قضوا حياتهم جراء زراعة الألغام في مناطق مختلفة. معروف أن جريمة زراعة الألغام هي جريمة ينفرد بها الحوثيين بشكل أساسي في اليمن، ولم يثبت حتى الآن أن هناك أي جماعة أخرى قامت أو طرف آخر قام بعملية زراعة ألغام. تجنيد الأطفال خلال الفترة من هذا العام، من بداية هذا العام إلى سبتمبر، تم توثيق ما يقرب من 3500 حالة تجنيد إجباري لأطفال من مختلف المحافظات. لا نريد فقط أن نتكلم عن الإحصائيات، لكن نتكلم عن حالة لا تتضمنها حالات انتهاكات لم تنص عليها وتتضمنها التقارير الدولية حتى الآن، وهناك فشل وإخفاق حقيقي من المجتمع الدولي في التعامل مع هذه الانتهاكات من قبل الحوثيين. يعول عليكم كناشطين وكمبادرين أن يجب الكشف كثير من الحقائق في هذا الشأن، وهناك إشكاليات كثير في الوصول للمعلومات بالنسبة لمناطق الحوثيين. لدينا كثير من الحالات. قبل أيام تلقيت اتصال بثلاثة آباء لديهم بنات مسجونات في الأمن السياسي في صنعاء من أكثر من شهرين، يطالبوا حتى ببدلاتهم. هناك حالة ابتزاز. السجن المركزي في صنعاء لأول مرة في تاريخ اليمن، يعني على الاقل خلال 30 سنه الماضيه، يصل عدد السجينات الى 400 سجينه فقط او اكثر، بينما السعه المحدده للسجن حوالي 100 سجينه. الى قبل 2014 كان يبلغ عدد النساء المعتقلات حوالي 60 في اقصى حد، يزيد العدد او يزيد يعني ينقص العدد احيانا، لكن لم يتجاوز حتى 60 بالنسبه للسجن المركزي في صنعاء، واذا ما وزعتها على بقيه المحافظات ستتفاجأ. اليوم نتكلم عن حالات اخفاء قسري النساء لم يكن هذا موجودا من قبل في اليمن بهذه الصيغه، رغم كانت الاعتداءات والاختطافات تطال الرجال فئه الرجال بدرجه اساسيه، لكن النساء هناك حالات تعذيب تم توثيقها. لدينا في وزاره حقوق الانسان ومقدم مساعده لحوالي 15 امراه تعرضت لتعذيب، الكثير منها تخشى ان تتكلم عنها وحتى تتكلم ما الذي جرى. ادعاءات بحالات اغتصاب لم تحصل كما ما حصل. هذا فقط موجز سريع عن حالة حقوق الإنسان. لا شك أن الحرب لها تداعياتها وظروفها الحرب. هناك أيضا انتهاكات يتم التعامل معها في بقية المناطق كلا بحسب حالاتها. أجدد الشكر للدكتور عبد القادر على توثيقه بهذا الكتاب الذي سيوثق جزء من اساليب التعذيب. انا كشخص عامل في انتهاكات حقوق الانسان ورصد التوثيق، حقيقه المنهجيه التي يعتمدها الحوثيين هي منهجيه جديده وطارئه على الوضع في اليمن بالنسبه للتعذيب. كانت واحده من اسباب التعذيب خلال الفتره الماضيه هو انتزاع المعلومات. الحوثيين لا يعتقلونك من اجل الوصول لمعلومات. الدكتور عبد القادر ما الذي لديه من معلومات امنيه او عسكريه ممكن ان يخفيها لكي يتم احتجازه. لا يتم الاحتجاز او ممارسه التعذيب من اجل فقط الوصول للمعلومات كما كان يحصل قبل 2014. منهجيه التعذيب هنا اختلفت، هي اعتقال كافه او اختطاف كافه المعارضين او الرافضين لهذه الحكومه او اي شخص ينشط وله حضور. اساليب التعذيب هي جديده تماما وتختلف عما كان معروف في اليمن قبل 2014 سواء في مختلف الجهات. ولذلك لدينا خلال العام القادم تقرير شامل حول اساليب التعذيب التي انتهجها الحوثيين تعمل عليه الوزاره في اليمن، واتوقع ان نتشاركه معكم مع بدايه العام القادم ويتم جمعه عبر روايات وتوثيق سواء من منظمات او من جهات حكوميه او من لجان مستقله لحالات التعذيب. اشكركم مجددا واعتذر لانه بعضكم رواياتك العربيه، لكن اعتقد انه الحديث العربي هو افضل بالنسبه لي للتوضيح بشكل افضل، وشكرا جزيلا.
Sure. Thank you, Your Excellency. Just to kind of recap a little bit about what His Excellency had just discussed with us. He gave us the current data about the prisoners and those who are being killed and wounded in the current conflict in Yemen. And he also told us that there will be a report that will be produced soon that will mention and discuss all the different kinds of torture and human rights violations that the Yemenis have been exposed to during the conflict. Unfortunately, the numbers are horrifying. We will be producing a report summarizing what His Excellency said in English and in Arabic post the event. Your Excellency, could you please tell us a little bit more about the prisoner exchange process? You know, it's been talked about, it's been done, but not very successfully. What are the challenges that come with that, and what are your aspirations this coming year in that specific subject? We can't hear you. There we go.
اوكي، هناك الكثير من الحالات اللي حصلت فيها تبادل السجناء، لكن يجب الاخذ بالاعتبار الفارق بين وضع عمليات التبادل التي تمت مع الحوثيين. من تم تبادلهم عادة أشخاص ضحايا مدنيين لم يكونوا في أي لحظة من اللحظات أسرى حرب، بينما من تم مبادلتهم هم الحوثيين هم مقاتلين تم القبض عليهم أثناء العمليات العسكرية. هناك الكثير من الحالات التبادل التي كانت تحت يعني وساطات اجتماعية وقبلية، وهناك قليل جدا اللي تم برعاية، حالات محدودة اللي تمت برعاية المبعوث. حتى الآن يعيق الحوثيين الكثير من الإجراءات للتوصل إلى عمليات تبادل شاملة، وما يعلنوه فقط إعلان للإعلام، بينما في الحقيقة هم يرفضون الاعتراف بأكثر من 50% مما هو موثق أنه لديهم.
Okay, so His Excellency had said that there's a difference between the prisoners. There are the Yemenis, the residents of Yemen, being incarcerated for different reasons, and then there's the fighters that the Houthis would usually be mostly interested in exchanging, correct? And in that process, there's the process is very difficult, and it's not easy. And although they do announce their intentions for prisoner exchange, they usually do not. The Houthis usually do not acknowledge more than 50% of the reported prisoners that they currently have. Your Excellency, just one last question for you. How has the war exacerbated the situation and environment in Yemen's prisons since the beginning of the conflict? And what are some of the future plans and outlooks of the government to protect the prisoners' human rights and improve their conditions?
شكرا جزيلا. اولا دعنا نتكلم انه حاله حقوق الانسان ووضع حقوق الانسان في اليمن لم يكن حتى مثالي قبل 2014 او في احسن حالته. كانت هناك الكثير من الانتهاكات هناك، لكنها لم تاخذ المنهجيه التي او الشكل او حتى الحجم التي اخذته مع الحرب. الحرب جرت في المناطق التي تسيطر عليها الشرعيه ولم تجري في المناطق الحوثيين. الذي يعرف النظام المؤسسي لليمن أن الدولة كانت مركزية بشكل شديد جدا وبشكل كبير، بحيث ركزت كل مؤسسات الدولة في العاصمة حينها. الحرب دمرت وجرفت حتى المؤسسات الموجودة مثلا في عدن، لم تعد لدينا مؤسسات، هناك تدمير كامل مؤسسات الدولة في عدن. لتقوم الحكومة بعملها تحتاج أولا إلى إعادة البناء المؤسسي، وهذا يتطلب كثير من الوقت والإمكانيات، إضافة إلى أن الظروف أيضا هي لا تساعد في كثير من الحالات. تبذل الحكومة الكثير من الإجراءات بالتعاون مع عدة جهات للتخفيف أو للحد من مستوى الانتهاكات، لكن الحرب هي سبب رئيسي لاستمرار وسبب الانتهاكات. من يشن الحرب اليوم، من يهاجم، من يتحمل مسؤولية ضاعف الانتهاكات هم الحوثيين. من يهاجم في مختلف الجبهات وفي مختلف المناطق هم الحوثيين. الحرب بالتأكيد كأي بلد أو كأي تجربة أخرى تشهد صراع مسلح تتضاعف فيها انتهاكات حقوق الإنسان. مشكلتنا في البلد هي بالتأكيد أنها هي الحرب التي يرفض الحوثيين أي شكل من أشكال إيقافها، ويصرون على أن يخضعوا كافة اليمنيين وكافة المناطق لهذه الميليشيات، وهذا ما يستحيل قبوله ويستحيل تحقيقه. لكن تعمل الحكومة في ظل ظرف صعب وإمكانيات صعبة وتحرر يعني مؤسسات ضعيفة جدا. إذا تكلمنا على مؤسسات إنفاذ القانون أو مؤسسات الدولة هي جدا في غاية الضعف، لا تستطيع بدرجة أساسية في يوم وليلة أن تواجه كل ما يجري على مستوى البلد. الانتقادات نسمعها جميعا بالنسبة لدور الحكومة، لكن ليس بيد الحكومة، لكي نكون صادقين، ليس بيدها حلول سحرية أو مجرد قرارات لن تجد لها لم تجد لها في الأرض من ينفذها في ظل ضعف وجود المؤسسات. تبذل الحكومة بكافة وزاراتها ومؤسساتها كل الجهد على صعيد البناء المؤسسي. ربما تلاحظون أنه حالة عدم الاستقرار في العاصمة المؤقتة عدن أن تساهم في إضعاف دور الحكومة، لكن واجب الحكومة هو أيضا أن تعمل على هذا الأساس. وهناك محاولات لتفعيل بعض الآليات الوطنية في مجال التوثيق أو في مجال المساعدة. شكرا.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Shukran. Just to recap His Excellency's answer, you know, the central government is currently facing a challenge of its facilities being destroyed during the war. He mentioned that the human rights, you know, were not perfect. You know, the conditions were not perfect prior to the war. However, they were exacerbated with the war and with the destroyed facilities in central government controlled areas. The armed conflict always deteriorates the human rights conditions further of its constituents. And yes, there is criticism of the government, yet they are facing the challenge of war and the weakness and absence of its facilities that need to be rebuilt. And for the instability and the instability in the capital is weakening the government role in maintaining those conditions. Thank you both for your wonderful insight. I would like to just remind everyone, we're going to go into the Q&A session right now. Please send, if you have a question, please send it in the chat or in the comment section on Facebook. And another reminder, the link to the book on Amazon is in the chat. Please go ahead and check it out. I have a few questions here. The first question is going to, I'm going to ask you to unmute Dr. Al-Guneid. I'm going to pin both feet. Okay. Dr. Al-Guneid, you said that you wrote this book because you want the people to know the truth about Yemen. The question is, what's that truth and what do you want the people to know? What is the main message behind your book?
Number one truth, we are 40 million. Our population is actually 40, not 30 as they write. And we are so diverse. And diverse is okay, no problem. Every country is diverse. You are in the States, what is one of the most diverse population on earth. But they are secure, they are safe, they are stable, they are not in trouble, because no one uses force, no one uses the support from a foreign country, and there is a rule of law. So what I want, Yemen problems is one, a certain sect or group or part of the country, one of the diversities, wants to take everything. This is number one truth, and I want it to really stop. Number two, none should use force. None should use money or support or arms or training from a different country, from a foreign country. Use of arms should be exclusive to security and to the army. The job of the army is not to do politics and only to protect the constitution. Do Yemen these few things and there will be no problem and we will be stable. And Yemen should stay one country. Yemen should not be shattered or fragmented. Okay, some people said, let us be practical and let us fragment this country. This will not bring stability. Believe me, I can talk for a whole chapter about this. Stability will not, we will not get stability and we will not get rid of our miseries if we get fragmented. We will fight each other as well. There should be rule of law, one good stable country, and rule of law, and no use of the forces of or the support. A certain group should take advantage from their own next of kin by the use of foreign power support.
Great. So I have another question for you from Ms. Hariya Mashhour. And she's saying that you once told her that when you met in Berlin, about the time you spent taking care of detainees or trying to cure them from their ailments. Have you covered that side in the book? and what kind of impact did that have on you?
Yeah, at the beginning, I was just a pariah, treated very badly. And in the middle, they needed me. They needed me. So they started to use me to do things for them. And it scaled up to that I used to do like a ward round, have the doctors move from room to room. So I will visit all the cells. And at one point, I examined every serious case and wrote a full report about their conditions and asked for them. And sometimes I was taking as emergency to certain people. Yes, I did a lot for let us say a few months. And then, I think then after they started the Kuwait negotiations, somehow they become more affluent. They had more money and they have more resources. I mean, before that, sometimes we went without tea, without a meal. Everything was lousy. Suddenly, everything improved, and they even had possibly more money, so they could bring doctors, their own doctors, to see them. So I was again be made as a pariah again, as a bad person again. So yeah, they used me, and they would talk to me for a certain time.
There's another question for you here, and it's from Abdul Hakim, and he's asking, how would you respond to the Biden administration's decision to remove the Houthis from the terrorist list, despite their brutality being comparable to that of ISIS?
Mr. Biden has 40 years behind him in Congress. He was famous as a dealer wheeler and as a Mr. Compromiser. He likes middle people to split the differences. Mm-hmm. So he thought by being nice to Houthis, he can charm them up. And actually, there is another whole discussion should be where the international aid goes, including the Gulf states people. It goes to the Houthi military machine, right? So he was nice to them. And the other good thing he did was he leaned pressure on the Saudis. And that pressure yielded the Riyadh initiative for comprehensive solution. So with these two things was the action of Mr. Lideker, the U.S. envoy to Yemen. He did these two things. He was waiting for the Houthis to respond. This is the real answer to your question. They couldn't understand what are Houthis. Houthis don't want a compromise. They want everything. So they think that mediators, UN, US, Europeans are God-sent present to enable a tamkeen, to enable them to become the rulers of Yemen. So their reaction, they will insult them, and they will take from them gains, political and material and economical gains. And then when they think that they have had enough, they will discard them as a disposable thing. They will throw them as they will throw any disposable thing to the garbage tin. So this is what I think about the attempt of the United SA to reach a negotiated peace deal. They don't want peace deal. They are happy like this, and they want everything. They rely on the short span attention of the Americans and all the others, and on that we are not matched to them in firepower. And the support of Iran has no one to stand to them. That's their asset. So they will take things from the so-called international community, and will stay as it is. They call it strategic patience.
Thank you, Dr. Abdulkader. And I do have a quick question for you about the book that kind of puzzled me. It's towards the beginning. When you were first being moved from the first cell to the next, you had said you didn't really have anything when you went there. They didn't even let you take your shoes. But then you mentioned you had a toothbrush. Where did the toothbrush come from?
Oh, my kidnappers, the one who took me from my own home, they stopped. They stopped. They were chewing cat. They stopped to have tea in Mafraq Al-Guneid, right? And they said, "Would you like something?" Right? And they said, I knew. I mean, I can't stay without a toothbrush. I can't, right? So I knew what's waiting for me. Said, toothbrush. Just imagine what he wants from this life is only a toothbrush.
First thing that came to mind. Thank you. I'm going to direct a question for His Excellency Mr. Arman. If he's still with us here, yes. And the question says, how do you view the international community's reaction to Houthi human rights violations? Are there any real intentions to pressure them into adopting peaceful means? I think this was answered kind of by Dr. Al-Guneid here, but we would like to also hear your opinion on the matter.
Can you repeat your question, please? Because I couldn't.
Yes. How do you view the international community's reaction to Houthi human rights violations? And are there any real intentions to pressure them into adopting peaceful means?
حقيقة سبق أن عبرنا بالنسبة لنا في أكثر من مناسبة أنه الدور المجتمع الدولي في التعامل حتى الآن مع ميليشيات الحوثيين وحتى مع الانتهاكات التي يمارسونها ما زال ضعيف جدا ومحدود جدا. وهناك أكثر من عامل يعود لأكثر من سبب، منها أن بعض الباحثين أو العاملين في بعض المنظمات الدولية وخصوصا من غير اليمنيين أو العرب ينظر إلى الوضع في اليمن من واقع خلافاته أو نظرته لواقع حقوق الإنسان في بعض دول التحالف، وهذا للأسف مجحف وظالم شديد جدا بالنسبة لنا في اليمن. المسألة الأخرى ربما هناك انحياز وتأثر بحالة الاستقطاب والصراع. الحوثي لم يدع فرصة أو مجال حتى ليقول أنه هناك في تقصير في فضحه ويفضح نفسه بنفسه. يعني نرى أنه قبل تقريبا شهر ونصف تم إعدام 9 أشخاص على مرأى ومسمع من الناس، وكانت ردود الأفعال باهتة وضعيفة. عبرنا عن ذلك في أكثر من مناسبة. بالنسبة لنا في الحكومة نحن مقتنعين أن دور المجتمع الدولي لن يكون أساسي وحاسم في معركتنا مع الحوثيين وفي مهمتنا. هذه معركتنا وهذه مهمتنا، وإن كنا نعتقد أن هناك جزء من الالتزامات الدولية يجب يقع على عاتق المجتمع الدولي في التعامل معه، لكن حقيقة دور المجتمع الدولي حتى الآن ضعيف وباهت في التعامل مع الحوثيين وفي اتخاذ إجراءات حقيقية وجادة إزاء ما يمارسونه من انتهاكات.
شكرا أستاذ عرمان. Just to recap, His Excellency was telling us how the role of the international community remains weak and limited due to multiple factors, some of which could be bias and unjust to the Yemenis, since they are looking at it from their perspective, not the Yemeni people's perspective. The Houthis have been very vocal and open about their actions. They just sentenced about 9 people to death just a month ago. And at the end, he considers this to be a Yemeni's conflict. It's a problem that should be solved by the Yemenis. And even though some responsibilities do fall on the international community and some action is expected from them, they remain weak and they remain behind in taking serious steps to resolving the conflict. just looking to see what more questions. I have another question for you here, Mr. Arman. It's asking about the war crimes and crimes against humanity that must be referred to International Criminal Court. There's a real dilemma in referring these crimes in Yemen to the International Criminal Court because the Yemeni parliament has not ratified the Rome status. But we can overcome this dilemma if the Yemeni government asks the UN Security Council to refer these crimes to the court. Can the Yemeni government request that from the UN Security Council? And what's your intake on that? One moment, you are muted. If you could please unmute yourself.
أعتقد أن مسألة الإحالة أو مسألة تدخل المحكمة الجنائية الدولية عادة سواء الموضوع المساءلة أو المحاكمة هو عادة يتم بعد انتهاء الحرب. مسألة إثارة هذه المواضيع في مواضيع المساءلة والمحاكمة وما هي الآليات الأفضل، هل هي داخلية أو دولية، هذا يعتمد على إنهاء الحرب. لا يمكن إجراء حتى الآن محاكمات ومساءلات تحقيقات شفافة وعادلة في ظل استمرار الحرب. الخطوة الأولى قبل أي إجراءات في هذا الإجراء خصوصا من قبل الحكومة اليمنية في مسألة المساءلة يجب أولا أن The electricity is off.
No worries.
كما أشرت يعني قبل قليل إنه موضوع المساءلة هو عمليا مرتبط بحالة الحرب بدرجة أساسية، وثم بعد ذلك يمكن الحديث ما هي الإجراءات. المجتمع الدولي يستطيع أن يتخذ كثير من الإجراءات، لكنه إلى الآن يتدخل بشكل فيما يتعلق خصوصا فيما يتعلق بحالة حقوق الإنسان، يمارس بالنسبة لنا شكل من أشكال غض الطرف عن الحوثيين، وهذا يحتاج إلى مزيد من الإجراءات والتوثيق. أي محاكمات الآن سيتم اتخاذها وإجراءات سيتم اتخاذها ستعرض الشهود والضحايا ويعني حتى المتهمين أنفسهم لكثير من الانتهاكات، ولدينا أدلة ومعلومات تتكلم عن قيام الحوثيين بتصفيات وبالقضاء على شهود وحتى متهمين أو أشخاص متورطين في عدد من الانتهاكات عادة يقوموا باتخاذ مثل هذه الإجراءات بمجرد الإعلان عن أسمائهم.
Just to recap, His Excellency was to answer that question. The most important point is that there could not be an international investigation, and this could not be taken to the international court until the war is over to ensure the transparency of the investigation. So until then, unfortunately, this could not be taken to that. In the meantime, the government is working on continuing to record the cases of human rights violations in Yemen by the Houthis so that they have a full account once the war is over to hold those parties and those people responsible for their war crimes. Thank you, Your Excellency. Just checking for more questions. Okay, do we have any more questions? If we don't, I think I will ask His Excellency, Mr. Arman and Dr. Al-Guneid, do you have any last words before we end our discussion today?
Yes, I have the same. I will repeat the same word that I made earlier. You are my folks. You are our folks. You are our diaspora. The Yemenis in the United States of America. Yemen, as they say, they want you. You have a role to play. And I think you have, with this book, something to do with it as a starter, as to stir the stagnant water. And then from there, you can improvise and evolve and do more and more things. And you can copy the activities of other communities in the diaspora in the United States. That's all I want to say.
Dr. Al-Guneid, do you have any intention of translating the book to Arabic for Arabic-speaking people who would like to learn more about your story?
I think it is already written in Arabic as well, but I need a publisher. I need the publisher to have interest in that.
Thank you. Your Excellency, any last words before we end our discussion today?
أولاً أعتقد أن كتاب الدكتور عبد القادر هو توثيق ممتاز لممارسات تتكرر ما زالت تتكرر حتى اللحظة في سجون الحوثيين، وبالتالي من المهم جدا الأخذ بعين الاعتبار بما ورد فيه كواحدة من تجربة أساسية يعني تعرض لها الدكتور عبد القادر وتعرض لها عشرات أو مئات اليمنيين حتى هذه اللحظة. المسألة الثانية أنه المجتمع الدولي رسالة واضحة، حالة الاستهتار أو حالة غض الطرف أو حالة التجاهل التي تعرضت لها التي مارسها المجتمع الدولي تجاه انتهاكات الحوثيين يستغلها الحوثيين أحيانا أو يعتبرها الحوثيين كضوء أخضر لاستمرار انتهاكاتهم، وحتى بلغ الأمر أنه اعتقال واختطاف موظفين في السفارة الأمريكية، حوالي 8 من موظفي السفارة الأمريكية، بعضهم قد أحيل للتقاعد منذ 2013 و2012 وحتى قبلهم. هناك حالات لم توفر لها حتى المجتمع الدولي لم يوفر حماية. هناك انتهاكات واعتداءات يومية تتعرض لها موظفين في المنظمات الدولية الذين ليسوا مرتبطين بالحوثيين، وللأسف مدراء البرامج والمشاريع لهذه المنظمات يتغاضوا عن هذا الموضوع أو يرفضون الرفع ما يجري تجاههم بحرصهم على الاستمرار في تنفيذ المشروع أو حرص على الاستمرار في الوظيفة لا أكثر. هناك كثير من الموظفين الدوليين ممنوعين من الدخول والوصول إلى مناطق الحوثيين لأسباب مختلفة. يجب على المجتمع الدولي أن يتخذ إجراءات حقيقية وجادة في معاقبة الحوثيين، وليس فقط معاقبة الحوثيين بل من يقدم لهم الدعم والتمويل والتخطيط خلال هذه الفترة. نلاحظ بشكل كبير جدا تصاعد الهجمات الصاروخية بالصواريخ البالستية أو الطيران المسير بشكل دائم على مناطق وأحياء مدنية واستهداف مدنيين بشكل متكرر. هذه كلها تتم بإجراءات. يجب على المجتمع الدولي أن ينظر إلى بشكل مختلف أن هذا السلوك الذي يسلكه هو أحيانا قد يعتبر مشجع للجماعات المسلحة وسيشجع غيرها على الانخراط في هذه الأعمال. وشكرا جزيلا.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So just to recap, His Excellency did mention that the ignorance of the international community has continued to encourage the Houthis' practices and human rights violations, which led up to the recent kidnapping of U.S. Embassy employees in the capital. The international community should hold and must hold the Houthis accountable for their violations and their practices, including those who are supporting them and backing them and giving them money to be carrying out their acts. I would like to thank you both for being here with us today. This has been a wonderful discussion, very so much knowledge and information and requests that we hope that will be heard, and for the conflict to end and for the conditions of the people in Yemen to improve. I would like to thank everybody that joined us today. We appreciate you being here. I would like to remind you that a report will be published summarizing this webinar in Arabic and English, and it will be emailed to all of our participants and will be available on our website, wcys.org. A reminder to purchase the digital print or print copy of Prison Time in Sana'a by Dr. Al-Guneid. That's available on Amazon. The link is in the chat, and it will also be provided in the email. Also in the chat are links to our website, Twitter, and Facebook. Please follow us and stay up to date on the latest in Yemen, and stay tuned for future discussions. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Thank you very much, Marwa. Tthank you very much.
Thank you. مع السلامة.
Yes, sir.